FairFuelUK, because he's written a great piece in The Sun today, in which he has likened electric vehicles, of which you see many out there, as the Betamax of transport. Now, for those of you old enough to remember, and for those of you not old enough to remember, Betamax was the kind of secondary system that ran. Some people say it was better than VHS, when VHS started up, when video recorders were the big thing back in the sort of 80s, I guess it was. Betamax was a dual system which ran alongside VHS, but was not compatible with VHS. Some people bought Betamax machines, some people kept buying videos to play on their Betamax system, but in the end, Betamax lost out, and in the end, all Betamax machines were sort of consigned to the dustbin of history, rather like designs that just didn't work. And Howard makes the very good comparison today that electric cars are going to end up in the same place. They're too expensive. They're not going to be as cheap to run as you think. When you need to replace the battery, it costs thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. And frankly speaking, if you've bought an electric car, you're not smug, and neither should you be. You're not a virtue signaler, neither should you be. You're actually a bit of a numpty. Howard, a very good afternoon to you.
What a great introduction.
Well, listen, I've tried to pick the sort of the tone of your piece out, and that's kind of what it is, isn't it? Because, I mean, even the response to some of your tweets today I've seen from various electric car drivers, they're so smug. They go on. As one guy said, I've had my car for 5 years, it's done 53,000 miles, I've never even had to replace the tyres. Now, hang on a minute. Call me old-fashioned, but electric cars are incredibly heavy. I imagine they wear the tyres out quicker than a petrol car. I know of no car that can go 53,000 miles without putting new tyres on it.
Yeah, I think there's a few porky pies going there. And as usual, it's an attack comes back rather than a debate or a discussion.
Yeah.
The point, Mike, I wanted to, with the article, and I'm thankful for the Sun giving the presence to actually put it out there, is that in 2030 we will not be able to buy a diesel or petrol new car. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And most production lines are now around about 5 to 6 years in forward planning terms. And I know I got a private text from a production director at Ford today who actually told me that if we don't actually reverse this ban or put a moratorium on it, like other countries, which is 2035 or 2040, they won't be able to come back and make fossil fuel vehicles. It will be stuck with EVs. They have no choice. And that's the issue I wanted to bring up. EVs are great vehicles, great cars, but we haven't got a government that's really thought out a simple point of view that it's not practical because we can't charge the flipping things up. There's not enough chargers in the country. As you pointed out earlier, I heard you say, people are actually fighting each other for things. We're saying, OK, it's only a few incidents, but it's going to get worse and worse. We need 400,000 charging units. We've got about 40,000.
Well, this is the thing. And, I mean, we know from what we saw in America recently when they had the big freeze that basically Teslas were locking their owners out of the cars because it was so cold that nothing worked. We know also here that if it does get cold, as it did in the 2 weeks before Christmas where the snows fell and it was below freezing, you know, the batteries drain an awful lot quicker because you've got more things on in the car, you know, it makes sense. It's like if you've got a load of apps open on your phone, the battery's going to drain a lot faster. But at the end of the day, as you say, there's not enough electricity. They're too expensive. They're not very versatile. And we've seen in your piece today the queues of up to 3 hours at Gretna Green. All these Tesla owners sitting there feeling very smug but actually looking pretty stupid because they can't go anywhere.
And there's also the big point, of course, they're not as green as we think. The CO2 emissions in manufacturing cradle-to-grave an electric vehicle compared to internal combustion engine vehicles is about the same. So what's the benefit? Now, if they are so good, why do we have to have a government edict to tell us we've got to ban diesel and petrol to make you drive electric vehicles? If they are so good and so green and so fantastic, why can't they stand on their own 4 tyres?
Well, exactly right. And, I mean, the bottom line as well is that this government has ordered this to happen, as you say, alongside a lot of other governments. But I spoke to somebody, as you just described, who used to work in the automotive business, and he was talking, I think, about Jaguar Land Rover, who've got some big plants up in sort of not far from Liverpool. And he said that they were already kind of, you know, they've converted them to the point where they're only going to make electric vehicles. And once they've done that, they can't really go back.
Well, that's the point, you see. 2023 is the last time that we can do something about it. And one of the big things I produced recently, at the end of last year, working with the Alliance of British Drivers and the Motorcycle Action Group, was a report by the CBR that said any benefits from the electric vehicle 2030 ban is going to cost us 5 times those benefits, and they're alleged benefits, because, you know, as far as we're concerned, there is no need to change diesel and petrol because they're getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. There's no need to go over to electric vehicles. We need to have 4 or 5 choices of transport. Hydrogen, you know, e-fuels, synthetic fuels, catalysts. There's millions of things we could do, not force us into one direction. And even the managing director of Toyota, or the chief executive of Toyota, said he doesn't believe that we should be relying on one energy source, i.e. electric.
Yes, exactly right. So, I mean, what chance is there, though? Because we've got Keir Starmer today making his little speech about the future under Labour, which is going to be a green future, apparently. You can't see him reversing the electric rule anytime soon. Rishi Sunak seems slightly less green, perhaps, and less green obsessed than Boris Johnson was, but he doesn't show any signs yet of going back to fossil fuels. And everybody you hear talking, from the national grid, even to oil companies, are telling us that oil is no longer the future.
Well, it's a really worrying thing, and one important thing to understand, that 6,000 or 7,000 of our products that we buy every day and use every day are made from oil. And, you know, we're looking at cosmetics, we're looking at medicines, we're looking at all sorts of things, the plastics, etc. You need oil to actually refine oil, etc., to actually make these products. And as far as the government's concerned, they're trying to turn this round. I'm going to be working my butt off for the next 3 or 4 months to try and convince them. I've got a lot of backbench support still in this. They think this is madness, this whole thing. And what we need to do is, let's have a moratorium. Let's move it back to 2035 or 2040 and work out direction and let clean fuel technology evolve without these edicts. Yeah. And that's the thing. Our freedom to drive is being threatened.
And clean fuel technology is very much working, isn't it? I mean, you've got Sadiq Khans trying to punish anyone who can't afford to buy a new car, effectively. That's his version of socialism. You know, if you haven't got an electric car or a brand new car, you're going to be punished, and you're going to be made to pay, you know, an additional £12.50 every single time you get into your car. Friends of mine have been told that, you know, basically they're now in the new ULEZ zone, and unless they buy a new car, it's going to cost them £8 a day just to go to the shops.
Well, next week, and I hope to come on your show to talk about it, we've got a new survey of 27,000 diesel and petrol drivers around the Greater London and how it's impacting on their lives. And it is salient. Basically, people are not going to go into the ULEZ to shop anymore. They're going to go out of London, and therefore what's going to happen to those businesses? They're not going to go into restaurants, they're not going to come in, etc. All those sorts of things, which, I mean, and we learned that he's going to get £300 million in the next, I think, from August onwards for the next 12 months in terms of this ULEZ charge. But in 2027, he's going to get 0.
Yeah.
Now,
but they've already kind of said, haven't they, that basically they're going to have to put road tax back on because there's never going to be any other way around it.
Exactly. And don't forget, we've got that wonderful March budget coming up where you can see this green influence here to push pump prices even higher and taxes even higher to push us out of diesel and petrol. It is, honestly, it's pathologically wrong, and I will be fighting like mad on behalf of your listeners and viewers.
But how are you going to be able to change the minds of the manufacturers? Because that seems to me to be the biggest problem, because if they've all bought into it and they've all gone along with it, you know, it's all very well for Jaguar Land Rover, not just picking on them, to say, don't worry, we've got a lovely brand new electric F-Pace for you. It's only going to cost 85 grand, and people are going to go, well, hang on a minute, well, how I haven't got the money for that.
Well, there's 2 things. One is I've gone and had meetings with some of these people, with MPs, etc. I'm going to have a word with, I'm hoping to have a meeting face-to-face with the Transport Minister. That's being arranged as we speak. And Jeremy Hunt has asked me to work on a thing called Pump Watch to bring pump prices down. As you know, all those sorts of things. I've got 30 MPs who signed a letter before Christmas. But the other thing also is what's going to happen is we're going to be importing diesel and petrol. Are they going to stop import of diesel and petrol? I have asked that question and no one's given me an answer to that one, because you can still buy cars from right across the world, specifically India, China, of course, and Japan. Japan is still going to make diesel and petrol vehicles. They are still going to do that. And America is not going to give up a gas guzzler, I promise you.
No way. Absolutely not. Absolutely no chance. Well, listen, Howard, we wish you luck with it as ever.